Hello! Before I get into this episode, I have a little bit of record correcting to perform. Notice correcting, not collecting. So I've been talking in the first two episodes about thinking that these vertical Gs, when they go into the red, give you penalties. And they don't. And there's no sort of sudden shelf penalty with vertical Gs, where if you have high positive or high negative, like these rides, you get a penalty. They contribute to the overall intensity because they get used in various calculations. But compared to lateral G, where there is a specific penalty to intensity for exceeding 2.81, and then there is another penalty, it's something like 3.1, which just tanks your excitement and excitement. It doesn't tank your intensity, it raises it incredibly. No, there's no specific penalty for negative Gs. The only penalty you'll see is if you have these too high. Your intensity will go up to 10, and then you will have a coaster which is not very exciting because the intensity has gone over 10. Anyway, that record sufficiently corrected. I think it's time to build some coasters, and we're definitely building some coasters, not going to get distracted by awful log flumes. So this inverted hairpin coaster, this feels like a good little compact coaster, so I'm going to enforce compactness by building some path there. So we have to fit something in here, which is intense and hairpiny. Right, let us go with that. So it hasn't. Can you? Yes, good. We can use this lift hill. So we just going to go over there, and I think this probably for a wild mouse. I don't think I would need to cheat intensity that much. I think we could probably actually have it just be an intense ride. Since they're wild mouse, it's an inverted hairpin coaster. Sorry. Though, dear, I'm cheating a little bit with having its part sit in within this square. That's fine, it's fine. We will live. Okay. Oh, I can't go out at 5 feet, so... Okay, so I'm going to keep going it to 10 feet. And then we're going to go round here. This is going to bobble round there. And then... Will I get away with that? Oh, yes, I will. But this is all going to be very, very tight and very fast through here. So we might end up taking a penalty going through there without intending to. But let's see what the testing throws up. So car one is heading off. I didn't want to look at that. I want to look at the lateral G graph. Ooh, this is going to be a bit spiky. Oh no, we're getting away with it. But here. Oh no. No, that actually is quite good. That works well. It's a very short little coaster. 500 feet to it. Might take. And, oh yes, it takes a massive penalty to its stats for not being long enough. And not having a tall enough drop as well. So, how can we fix that? Well, let us see. Let's see what we can do here. So this just doesn't have a long enough drop here. So I'm going to go for the putting in a drop there. Oh, it would let me do that. That's rather miserable of it. Okay, so fine. So we're getting around here. This kind of is a little bit... Now, will this work? Is the question. No, will we get away with that? Will that take some of the amount of longness that we need? Yes, the length that we need. This should take us above the length we need. Hopefully. Hopefully this will be able to... Oh, yes. It's a little bit dicey there. That looks like that might not make it over some point. Hopefully it will always be full of guests. Whee! Okay, so that's 700 feet. I think that should be okay for one of these. It should have a decent enough drop now. Decent enough speed. Come on, calculate. What shall I call it? Call it ladder frame. Oh yes, no, let's go with Satan's ladder. Now, we can have some more red theming. And oh, do we have any flames? Do we have the industrial? No, we don't have any flames. That's a shame. They can have that. Crawling monster. That looks like the thing. No, it's just this right. It's 5 minutes in. We've already good. So the intensity is not super high off this, but it's okay. I feel that's a decent ride. Yes, here's where I'm going to go delving off into weird 90s nostalgia. Or if anybody remembers still, the virtual pet craze started with Tamagotchis, and these were, I was in school at the time that these came out. These very much upset teachers with this sort of, seemed almost designed to upset teachers because it was something that you had to pay attention to constantly. Otherwise you got the wrong animal at the end or something like that. And the Martian looks like the animal that you got basically if your teacher confiscated your Tamagotchi and left it in a desk for 2 days, and then your virtual creature did not get enough food or loving care or anything else. Wouldn't have dropped how high. Let's see. Yeah, let's go. Oh yes, that would be quite good. Just by the ride there. So then the queue line round here. Yes, you were supposed to look after it sort of hourly, and I was fairly good at timing this thing sort of fairly subtly, so I didn't get caught during class. I just sort of had my Tamagotchi set up so that I could sort of feed it and play with it and never else on the journey between classrooms. So I generally got most of the good some Tamagotchis. I think I got the horrible creeping thing once just because I wanted to see what would happen. Yeah. Oh yes, and I think mine was actually yellow and pink. It was the 90s, right? This was just sort of how they came. So yes. This is, let's call this Tamagotchi feature evasion. And then open that up. That's just a nice intense ride. Yes, 8.17, that should get guests riding it. We should have some theming around the base. 1 second. There we go. It's just inappropriate theming, isn't it? Right. Well, this park is a little bit low on music around here, so we should add a bit of music in this area. So just about hear the techno, but it's not really. It's not providing good music. Horrible flashbacks to Alpine Adventures with that they just spent so much money on not being able to raise or lower land effectively. I think kind of over raising it. I could probably do a few stalls around here as well. So let's do that. Let's put in some toilets. The toilets dido dump. Can we get away with that on YouTube? Well, probably. Oh yes, Dino Donuts, of course. Dino Nuts. This is an awful title, which is going to confuse me later. And of course, yes, Dino Dogs. Why not? Why ever not? Probably many reasons why not. We should have. Oh yes, the Dino Dog Diner. Totally. And yes. Do we have? So we have a normal drink stall? No, we don't. Oh yes, we do. So I can indeed have, hopefully, a Dino Drinks. If I can put it somewhere. You can go there. Right. Okay, we didn't have any music. Let's have a look what we've got that we can build. Gentlemen. Love the pointlessness of this, right? So the whole thing I was saying, there's boat fires and my pointless log flume, which nobody will ever ride. Nobody has ever ridden because it's just nowhere near the intensity that it needs to be. Well, and this to be even worse. Let's just put this in. I'm going to put an entrance and an exit. No one will ride this. No one at all. No one's going to get on it. No one's going to care about it. Let's set this going. Let's see what its stats are. See, intensity 0.6. Nobody at all is going to ride that. Even 25 in a full set of rotations. No one's going to ride it. I mean, it needs to finish testing. So. No one will ride this. So, yes, 1.4. That's as intense as it gets. So, no intensity at all. We could have some very intense music. What could be worse than stereo merry-go-rounds? Well, quadraphonic merry-go-rounds. I hope none of these breaks down. It'll make life even worse. Why can't I build a merry-go-round? Aha! Yes. I have discovered the reason. I'm not sure if I've ever done this while recording. I think I had a good moan at one point of Windows and its dislike of you doing anything audio related. And it's because I have one of those roller wheel volume things on my keyboard. And apparently, if I touch that, that sets off some system process which goes, oh yes, the volumes. But it takes focus away from the roller coaster tycoon window. Oh, this is cursed, isn't it? So I should build a coaster around here now. That's so awful. But yes, I touched the volume roller on my keyboard because I wanted to turn this up. I wanted to feel the full force of what's going on with these 4 merry-go-rounds. Okay. This reminds me actually of something that I think late 80s, maybe 90s, back when the Flaming Lips as a band were very, very experimental. They launched an album called Zyreka, but Zyreka is not sort of a single CD or tape or record that you put on. I mean, I think it's something like 4. That's quite appropriate. And you're supposed to find sort of 4 different stereos and play them all at the same time. And I'm guessing the idea is that obviously nothing is quite that good at time synchronization, so they do. What should we do? What should we build here that's going to be intense? I think a twister. The twister coaster will be good and intense here. Yes, so you were supposed to play this thing, and go round there like that, and then let's go a little bit tighter. Launch lift hill. It's just awful. It's just so... Oh no, I want a large half... Oh, a half loop. There we go. 80 feet. That might be a bit much. Yes. Actually, no, we have the opposite problem. Which is that this is just not quite enough. Well, it'll help the guests appreciate the music so much more, won't it? So terrible. So yes, so Zyreca was an album which you were supposed to play sort of the 4 CDs or whatever that made it up simultaneously. And I remember once being way back in the early 2000s, sort of a big university, and someone going, "Oh yes, I have a copy, but I don't have all 4 required music playing devices." But what we all got together, we all brought like some sort of portable stereo. We could play it all together, and then we could hear it as it's intended to be heard. But that never came to fruition. So, I don't know. It's probably available on Spotify. You could probably just play it mixed or something, because this is a world of incredible convenience, and the idea of finding 4 separate sort of Bluetooth speakers or sound bars or whatever else. These just insanity in the modern age. Can we do a barrel roll? Yes. Yes. Yes, this is Zyreca arranged for 4 merry-go-rounds. Okay. And if it's just like the merry-go-rounds, I believe the essential kind of conceit of it was that you would never play it exactly the same way twice, because you know, no matter how much you try, you're trying to get 4 people to synchronize starting CD players, which are probably going to respond at different rates to the input anyways. So it's always going to be slightly off, slightly out of phase and weird and psychedelic, as Flaming Lips used to be before they kind of got more famous, started doing things like free radicals and whatever. And so that probably the Soft Bulletin was probably the first majorly commercial Lips album. So way before. So yes, part of the joy of this was the whole ethos of kind of 90s music listening. Before we got into the convenience and streaming and that it was still very much the era of very fancy hi-fi. It was into the digital era, so it's the point people were buying fancy CD players rather than fancy turntables. I don't know, I can't even remember how it was spelt. Yes, and part of it was this kind of almost anti-hi-fi, deliberately sort of thumbing their nose thing of going, well, you might have one very fancy high-end hi-fi system, and if you have a household which is very wealthy, you might even possibly have 2 in separate rooms. You're not going to be able to assemble 4 really good hi-fi systems in one room. So part of this album, you're going to have to play on whatever sort of junky portable player you've found. So it's going to be sort of, your kitchen radio, and you're going to have to play some of it on a sort of PC speakers attached to a Walkman or some stuff like that. And so that was a little bit of what they were aiming to do. And this probably should have had some brakes. Though it'll be fine, it won't crash. I'll eat my words later, I know it. I know I'm going to be eating those words. Those are words which I, just even as I spoke them, I better hope those are suitably edible and they're not past their sell-by date. I'm simply hoping that it's not past its sell-by date. We're talking about Zyreca, an album which probably nobody's ever heard of, by the Flaming Lips, a band which probably nobody's ever heard of. And the concept of trying to play or to assemble 4 separate CD players, be a device that no one's ever owned Depending on... Well, I think stats-wise, I think there's plenty of people in my audience who they would have remembered the CD era, so it's not quite that bad. But still. That's what people come here for, right? What can we do that's intense? I might just not worry about the guests going on stuff, actually. I might just go with... Let's just put a couple of motion simulators, because these will increase the guest cap. No one will go on them. Pointless motion simulator. But at least gets the guest cap up. This is actually a problem that some people have with this scenario when they're playing it. Which is that they're used to the idea of all these things which you normally build. To get the guest cap up. You're going into a 4,500 person guest park, and you go, well, I know how to do that. You build lots of motion simulators and a grid, and you build lots of small coasters and things like that. So we can make a coaster that's rubbish but intense. So they get to do a looping a looping Copacabana without loops. And just a powered launch. This is getting concerningly into the realm of this cursed coasters. But yes, because it's the intensity that the guests care about. They say they want something more thrilling. It's not the excitement, it's actually how intense the ride is. Which is something that I used to have a lot of trouble with, because I used to read that and think, oh, they want rides which are more exciting. Oh, no, that's totally okay. In fact, all I want to do is push that up a little bit more. Push the G's a little bit higher. And I think, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to name this after many years ago. Oh, come on, be more intense. Oh, that's as far as I can go. Okay, can I make it more intense with more circuits? Go on. Be intense. Be intense, but not very exciting. I really can't push the intensity that high. Maybe it needs 7 circuits. Oh no, I know what it needs. Not loads of circuits. Loads of circuits is entirely the wrong thing. What it needs is boosters. So let's put some tyre drives in there. So the boosters, the boosters get to 67, so yes, this should be good. 3 circuits. Okay, so how exciting is that? Oh, lights out on Gorilla Railroad. Oh dear. Hopefully we got enough mechanics to get to that. Enough mechanics? Yes. There's lots of that going on. So anyway, the story that I'm talking about. Years ago, I used to have a little white Mazda MX-5. One of the first generation ones. And I had it as a second car. It was very charming. I can't get this intense. And with the MX-5, one of the fun challenges you used to do was, if you're on a dual carriageway with lots of roundabouts, you would go, I'm going to do this entire dual carriageway, if it's nice and quiet, there's not much traffic, without dropping below third gear, which usually meant sort of enforcing a kind of minimum speed on what you could take the roundabout at. And it was quite a short-geared car, that probably wasn't very fast, but then you sort of had the thing of, well, I'm not going to drop below sort of 3,000 revs, and then that becomes quite a good speed to take a roundabout at in it's quite low to the ground, not particularly fast, but kind of sporty-ish car. And this is what I'm going to call this. I think, the Schwarzkopf trains that's on this. Those black decals look a little bit like pop-up headlights. But yes, this is exactly what how people would criticise the MX-5. They say, well, it's not really very exciting, is it? But still, some, intense driving around in an early 90s car. Very early 90s, the case of mine. I was a 1991, I think. It was a J-registered car, as we talk about it in the UK. So it's intense because, you might die, because the thing's probably made of rust by that point. But in this context of thrills of high-powered, multiple hundreds of brake horsepower cars, it's not very exciting. And there we go. And even without building a log flume, I've managed to narrate my way into building 1 tower, 4 pointless merry-go-rounds, a twister coaster, a couple of motion simulators, and a pointless. Maybe I should just build pointless log flumes everywhere, but no, that's got the guest cap up a nice bit. So let's figure out how we can solve this. What can we build? And there is spinning mouths. Yes, of course. We could just make the guests spin, and we could make that nice and intense for them. I kind of feel that maybe for everyone's sanity, they should get away from this horrible cacophony. This is going to be awful, isn't it? This is going to be one of those rides where now I need to. There's enough space for the entrance to kind of come out here, so it's going to go little down little. Yes, that's fine. So this might end up taking. I might be able to use. I don't know if the spinning wild mouse gets a penalty if it's not long enough, but I might be able to use that to my advantage, because if the penalty takes the intensity and excitement back down, I can then have huge lateral Gs. So this might work out. Okay, so how did that go? Ooh, 2.81. And that might not even have the penalty. We might need to go a bit faster. Come on, let's calculate your stats. Tell me what's going on. Oh, yes, so it took a penalty there. So maybe if I go to 30 feet, and the penalty, and I don't know if it's taking a penalty just to excitement there. Oh yes, because it's a lateral. It take a stat penalty, I think, but also which cut the excitement down. This wasn't very exciting. Unless if putting the length up, putting the G's up helps. So yes, the length penalty seemed to cut the excitement, but didn't cut the intensity. That's going to be a bit much, isn't it? Right. What are the stats? Come on, tell me what the stats are. I think this might be a little bit too much. Still. Oh yes, it's still taking. I think it is taking an intensity penalty. I think that is cutting down the intensity, but the fact this isn't long enough. Right, let's go in hard. 40 feet. So this is not going to be very exciting, but it is going to be intense. Right, let's let that whip round. Oh, that was just a little bit too much. And that's a shame. So 10.5, so 35 feet, I think, is the limit we can go to with that. I hope I didn't delete too much. That's not going to just set me right back to where I was. Just enjoy the merry-go-round sound. So the 3.2G. Oh, it's just slightly too much. So now, can I get away making this at 5 feet instead. And having sort of one turn like that, just to get the intensity down a little bit. So I want that intensity to be up sort of around 10 or so, not over 10. Come on, calculate. Always what happens to me. I get all like, oh, I should just do this just at the end of an episode, then it all goes horribly, horribly wrong. So how fast is that going at that point? So it takes this at 32, which is slightly problematic, I think. So if I were to just break this down, 31. Let's see what happens now with the peak. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to let this break. .94. And that's not exciting enough. So we're trying to play with the penalty, but the penalty's not working. Okay, so we are going to have to go with let's push the length out a bit more. So I'm thinking just go with that. This is a way to push the length out a little bit. This might end up being a good coaster now. It might end up being a rubbish one. The whole thing of those might end up being a good coaster. It's just a pointless track loop around there. So we should get a little penalty from that. Oh, we're still not long enough. I'm not sure. Is it 600 feet? Is it 700 feet that the wild mouse needs to be? Come on, calculate. Oh no, that's actually pretty good now. It's doing good. I'm going to call that dizzy after the record, not the egg, which I have covered many a time. And the one that I have is actually Reckless Eric's version of it, of who we talked in times past about the consolation prize and the final taxi. But before we get on a maudlin turn, I think that's an awful place to leave it, because it's about 3 minutes later than I wanted to leave things, but that's how life is around here. So I shall see you in the future episode when we try to get closer to that 4,500 guest goal.